This is the 1962 Singer 500A, and I've been talking about doing hand crank embroidery, and I have found on my own, using the Spartan, I believe, that when I did a wale, I got a better tension result with a motor on the machine, and that was more like stippling. And I want to mention disability accessibility. I've talked a lot about if you have a weaker leg or lose a leg, you can obviously treadle on your weaker leg. You can use a hand crank, or you can use a foot pedal up on the counter or the table as a hand pedal. But there are also people that lose their arms or are born without arms, and this is the embroidery machine. If you're going to pick up an electric machine, vintage, without buying a new embroidery machine that's all digital and, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, that you then need to update software on, this is the way to go. Now, I actually have a leg problem, and so my focus has been on what are my alternatives if I can't use my leg. And that's what had me headed to hand crank embroidery. But I have to say, after I got Zigzag working on this machine, and I ran through and did each of the pattern stitches, I have a painting from several years ago. It's a goldfish. It's from like 20 years ago, and I think it's in pastel or oil pastel. And I wanted to do a fish like Christiana's fish in hand crank embroidery. And yet, now that I've used this machine, I may not go back to hand crank embroidery, which is surprising to me. I've known about 500As and their patterns for a long time, but if you look at this, if you follow my channel, you might have seen that I'm doing a wale. Well, this will look like scallops all around the wale. The goldfish could also be done with that. These are all the different stitches that I can outline things with or fill them in. It isn't anything like the artistic, beautiful work that Christiana does. But for anyone who has lost an arm or has severe arthritis and can't hand crank, any of those issues, this is the machine to have. And the other thing, the advantage, is the speed. Now, I don't know how long it took me to do this. I was going to make this into a foot pedal bag because I generally put the foot pedal on the bed. I'm going to leave it as a bed blanket. And I have to make sewing machine covers for them anyway. So this is going to sit on the bed and protect the bed from everyday dust. And this is where I'm going to do the extra cams 1 through 5 that come with the machine. So this, in addition to a sewing machine cover, is going to protect the machine. But as I was doing that and working that all out, I realized how easy this makes embroidery. So anyone who has looked at my attempts at hand crank embroidery, or I can't do it the way Christiana does. I've tried with several different machines. I can't do it that way. This is a solution. It gives you 23 built-in stitches of all different types. Some of them are similar, like they're variations. It must be at the other end. There's one where 2 of them look very similar, but they're actually different patterns. It might be these 2. But there are 23 built-in stitches, and then there are another at least 22 total cams that you can use. So I don't think out of the 22 additional cams there are duplicates. There are cams up to 22. So you get the first 5 with this, which leaves you 17 additional stitches on top of what this machine can do. So 23 and 5 is 28 plus 17 other stitches on the other additional cams. That's a lot of stitches to be able to do any kind of embroidery. And this machine is so powerful. I mean, this went through denim like it wasn't even there. And this is a very heavyweight denim. So you would actually have to adjust your tension quite a bit for lighter weight fabrics, which is fine. You can do that with this machine. But like 2 layers of muslin, just imagine all the different pictures or monograms or anything you can do. In other words, this takes all it takes all the artistic skill that people like Christiana have and makes it mechanical and more affordable for people that either don't have the time or for one reason or another would rather do it by machine, motorized machine instead of hand crank or treadle. And unfortunately for me, it's faster than hand crank, and I have several quilt sets I have to get finished. So I may be using this machine more than I had planned and using an electric instead of a hand crank to do embroidery. I'm starting to fall in love with my 500A, especially once I took the top off and I know now more what it's doing from an artistic level. I can now start to manipulate what it can do and maybe come up with my own patterns. I don't know if that's possible yet. So I'm loving the 500A for embroidery.